Welcome to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast, a relaxing and informative show where we explore anxiety, panic, and PTSD, sharing how you can overcome them for life.
Aloha! Welcome back to the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. I'm your host and coach, Gina Ryan, and I am so happy to be with you again today as together we can consider the many ways to bring your mind and body back to its natural peace and calm. In today's episode, I want to talk about transforming fear into strength, traversing anxiety's steep challenges. We know that anxiety has us in a place where we are encountering many challenges, and some of them are pretty steep. But what happens is that as we go through all of this, we really do transform. We transform ourselves, we transform our ability to respond rather than react, and this really does change us from fear into strength. And I wanted to talk a little bit about metaphors and how finding metaphors in our life and in our anxiety in particular, finding the place where we can come up with a metaphor for what's happening to us can be so helpful. It helps us in our ability to be able to explain it to somebody, to actually even dive a little deeper into what's happening to ourselves. And metaphors can be incredibly helpful when we're dealing with anxiety for a lot of different reasons. And so I wanted to go over a couple of those with you today and then go into a metaphor that I think might be helpful for you with anxiety's steep challenges. The metaphor can give us a visual representation. It can provide a representation of anxiety that makes it easier to understand and conceptualize, not only for us to explain it to others, but for ourselves. Anxiety is often abstract and complex, and using a metaphor can simplify it by comparing it to something more tangible and relatable. So this can be helpful when you're dealing with family members, let's say, or coworkers who may not really quite understand what is happening to you when you are struggling. And the next point is that metaphors allow us to externalize our anxiety, to actually separate it from our sense of self. And this is very important because we are not anxiety, right? Anxiety is coming through us. We are having an anxious moment. We are feeling something that is anxious. We are not anxiety in and of itself. And talking about it in the form of a metaphor can help us to actually separate ourselves by giving anxiety a separate identity or a form. And that will create a mental distance between ourselves and our anxious thoughts, feelings, and sensations. This separation can provide a sense of control and empower us to address anxiety as something external rather than as an integral part of who we are. This can actually vault you forward so much because you stop identifying as anxiety. The next point is that metaphors offer alternative perspectives on anxiety, shifting our focus, right, from distressing to more constructive or empowering aspects. They can provide a fresh lens through which to view our anxious times, helping us reframe it as a challenge to overcome or a journey to embark on or a temporary state like weather patterns that come and go. So any of you who have listened to the mountain meditation will be familiar with this idea. That's what we talk about. That's what that meditation is about. A metaphor with the weather going across the mountain. Metaphors have the ability to evoke emotions and create a connection with the experience of anxiety. They can capture the intensity, the depth, the nuances of anxiety in a way that resonates with our personal experiences. This emotional connection helps us feel understood, validated, and less alone in our struggles. It helps with communication and expression because the metaphors offer a language to communicate and express our anxiety to others, like I said. They can serve as a bridge, if you will, between our own inner experience, which is uncomfortable, to say the least, and the external world. It enables us to articulate our feelings, our discomfort, and experiences in a more relatable and accessible manner, especially when we are talking to those who have no idea what a panic attack feels like. This can facilitate conversations, foster empathy, and increase the support from others because this metaphor will help them to get it. And finally, metaphors stimulate creative thinking and problem solving. They encourage us to think beyond the confines of rigid and anxious thoughts, opening up new possibilities and new perspectives. By engaging with metaphors, we tap into our creative faculties, which can help generate innovative strategies for managing our stress and anxiety. And so, with all of that said, I thought it would be nice to talk to you now about a metaphor. Let's do a metaphor. Again, let's stick with the mountain, although this time we're not talking about doing a meditation and the mountain and weather being the metaphor, but let's look at us actually traversing anxiety's steep challenges. It's like a towering mountain. Anxiety stands before us, casting its imposing shadow. Its jagged peaks represent our worries, doubts, and fears that seem almost insurmountable. The steep slopes challenge us, triggering uncertainty and unease as we contemplate the arduous journey ahead. Anxiety can feel overwhelming at the mountain's base, much like standing at the foot of a colossal peak. We may question our ability to ascend, doubting our strength and doubting our resilience. The terrain appears treacherous, filled with obstacles and pitfalls that threaten to hinder our progress. Yet as we embark on our ascent, step by step, one foot in front of the other, we begin to realize that anxiety, like a mountain, holds both difficulty and beauty. As we climb higher, we gain a new perspective, witnessing the world from a different vantage point. The view from the slopes reveals vast landscapes, reminding us that our anxieties are but a small part of the grander tapestry of life. With each stride, we grow stronger, overcoming obstacles that once seemed insurmountable. The mountain teaches us resilience, pushing us to discover our inner fortitude and determination. We learn to navigate the uneven terrain, adapting to its challenges and finding the strength to move forward. As we continue our ascent, we may encounter moments of uncertainty where the path becomes steeper or obscured by swirling mists. But just as the sun emerges from behind the clouds, we can also find moments of clarity amidst anxiety's fog. We learn to trust in our abilities, embracing the unknown with a courageous heart. Finally, as we reach the summit, we stand triumphantly atop the mountain, having conquered our anxieties. From this newfound height, we gain a sense of accomplishment and empowerment. We realize that the mountain was not our enemy, but rather a catalyst for growth and self-discovery. In this metaphor, anxiety becomes a metaphorical mountain, representing our challenges that we have. And as we navigate its slopes and reach the pinnacle, we develop resilience. We find new perspectives and emerge stronger on the other side. Just as mountaineers traverse rugged peaks, we can pass through anxiety, rising above its grip and embracing the beauty that lies beyond. I hope you can hear the possibilities and the potential that you have. You have been given these cards to play, this anxious hand that you have. It's okay. It's not the end. It is actually a challenge. It is your mountain to climb. And you can transform this fear that you are living with now, be it great or small, wherever you are on the path. You can transform that into strength. I know this firsthand, and I know I've said it on other episodes that I struggled for a long time, but I have learned things that I don't think could have been learned any other way. I have gifts now that are part of who I am because I climbed that particular mountain, that anxiety mountain. And so I want you to not feel so much like you have to continue fighting your anxiety. We don't talk about fighting it here because it is a teacher for you right now. It is the hand you have been dealt, and I want you to learn how to play it the best way you can. And that's why we have so many tips and tools and first aid kits and all kinds of things here that we can grab onto to give us a little bit of strength to help us to put that one more foot in front of the other, because that's what we need to keep doing. And as we go along, we may still feel uncomfortable, unsure, but if we keep going, just as it talked about in the metaphor, the fog clears, the sun does break through the clouds again. Panic attacks do not last forever. You get a breather from your stress. You get to go to sleep. You have moments of joy. I know that those can all be expanded as we continue, as long as we keep going forward. And so I'm inviting you to come up with your own metaphor. There's so much there that can be personal, right? Maybe you can try to put some words on paper that can help you find a way to represent your anxiety in a metaphor and help you to remove yourself from being the anxiety to having it just be separate from you and seeing that in the metaphor. And maybe this can help you to have a different perspective and shift your focus from being so freaked out and distressed to a little bit more of a constructive or actually empowering aspect. And maybe as you come up with a metaphor, it can help you to evoke emotions that maybe you have not yet been in touch with and help you to create a connection with the experience of your anxiety. And maybe the metaphor will help you to have more language to communicate and express your anxiety to others so that you can build a bridge between your experience, which is stressful and very uncomfortable, and to be able to have the language to explain this to the external world, helping you, giving you a way to articulate your feeling and your experiences in a more relatable and accessible manner. And if you can sit and actually begin to create a metaphor, this can help you to stimulate more creative thinking and problem solving and encourage you to think beyond the confines of regular old, straight and narrow, fear, anxious thoughts. And this could help you to open up new possibilities and actually see life from a new perspective. This can really help you with your creative faculties, and I hope that you will take some time and actually try to find what your anxiety feels like. Is it like a mountain you are climbing? Please begin with that if that is helpful for you. There's so many different ways you can go. It's like a little adventure in and of itself. But what I'm hoping is that you will find it is less frightening, it is less isolating, and that you can actually find more inside of you that you didn't even know was there by coming up with a constructive way of looking at your anxiety through the lens of a metaphor. I hope today's show was helpful for you. And if you end up writing a metaphor, if you have a way of sharing that with people in your life, that would be wonderful for you to do. But if you would like, you could also share it with us. I would love to see what you are up to and what you were able to do with your creative juices. You could send that to anxietycoachespodcast@gmail.com. And you could write in there whether you wanted me to share it with the listening audience or if you would like to keep it private. That's fine. Either way, I would love to see what you are working on. And again, I hope the show was helpful. And if you know someone who could benefit from hearing these words that we share here, please feel free to share the episode. And now for today's quote. Every mountaintop is within reach if you just keep climbing. And that's from mountaineer Barry Finley. I'll be back in a few more days with another podcast. Until then, be well and aloha.
Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode of the Anxiety Coaches Podcast. Find more information at theanxietycoachespodcast.com.